Greetings, friends. Good to see you again in my game room. I'm David McCord, a game collector and designer and aficionado. This time around, I'd like to bring you some information about a little game called Picaria. This is by request of one of our Kickstarter backers, as a matter of fact. Picaria is a two-player game, strategy game from the Tewa tribe among the Pueblo Indians of the American Southwest. It's related to tic-tac-toe, but more closely to Three Men Zamoras or Aki, some of the other three-in-a-row games, because there's actually a movement phase and makes it a lot more interesting. But the board also has 13 points instead of the usual 9 that you'd find in a three-in-a-row game like this. An exact twin of this game actually is found in Scandinavia called Luferschack. If you ever get up to Scandinavia, you'll have to look that one up. It's also very similar to games in the Kono family of games up in Korea. Now, when the Spanish invaders recorded their exploits in the Southwest, they wrote that the Tewa people had been playing Picaria, also called Pedrera. It's probably derived from a Spanish version of a game, but it quickly became part of the Tewa culture. Picaria was first described in academic terms by the American historian Stuart Cullen in 1907. And the game was exhaustively analyzed in 2016 by Larson and Rocha of the Dalhousie University in Halifax, Canada. They concluded that it's one of the best games in its category, and I agree. Here's how it's played. Each player has 3 pegs. The board, as shown here, has 13 possible positions for pegs and begins empty. Players decide what colors to play and who will start first. Then the game begins with a drop phase. Players alternate turns, dropping one of their pegs into a vacant hole on the board. The center point cannot be used until after each player drops their first peg. Pegs cannot move until all 3 pieces from each player have been dropped. During the move phase, pegs can be moved in any direction, one space at a time, following the lined pattern on the board. Pegs can't be jumped or captured, and only 1 piece is moved per turn. Players can create a 3-in-a-row to win the game at either the drop phase or the move phase. Now, you've seen how quick the game can go using these basic rules, but there are variations, as with a lot of other games, regional differences and house rules that make the game more interesting and playable. Players should be clear at the start which of the rules are in effect or not, so that there's no conflict. The first of the rules is the center space off limits rule. This means that the center space can't be used at all during the drop phase. I particularly like this method of play. It requires a little more foresight in your placement phase, anticipating the moves to come. Another set of rules is called a stalemate rules. It's an alternate ending in the case where one player can't make a move. Because there aren't any jumps or captures, it's possible to trap the other player's pieces in a corner. Although this rule is called stalemate, it generally is agreed that it's a loss for the trapped player. Repetition is another common rule in small strategy games. In this case, the rule states that repeating a position 3 times can be cause for a draw. It actually takes 6 turns to do this. 1 to move away, 2 to move back for 1 repetition, 3 to move away, 4 to move back again, that's 2 repetitions, 5 to move away, and 6 finally to move back again. That's 3 repetitions of the move. That means by that time the game's pretty well stalled anyhow, and players can just choose to call it a draw. The final variation is fairly common. It's more like other games in the 3-in-a-row genre. Picaria can be played without using the 4 cross positions on the board, and just use the 9-hole position, and not use the diagonal intersections. The value of the center position becomes a lot more obvious in the setup phase, but for the most part, I prefer that 13-hole version of the game There's a lot more variety, a lot more strategy that goes on there. Picaria is available as part of the Peg Pastime series from New Venture Games, distributed by Red Hen Toys. So if you'd like to know more about traditional games from around the world as part of our Peg Pastime series, or if you want to just tune in and learn more about games in general, I'm here to share, and I would definitely look forward to you. Meanwhile, as I always say sometimes, be sure to play every day.